Lesson 9. Jesus observing the Pasch. Like always, our sections have been broken up from your textbook, and we'll start with the introduction. Introduction. The Pasch was one of the important festivals observed by the people of Israel every year. After the building of the temple in Jerusalem, the festivals of the Israelites were celebrated centered on the temple. Therefore, all the Jews used to come to Jerusalem for the observance of the festival of Pasch. Jesus set out to Jerusalem as usual for the observance of the Pasch towards the end of his public life. The royal entrance of Jesus. Jesus arrived at Bethany near the Mountain of Olives on his way to Jerusalem. Jesus sent 2 disciples to the nearby village to bring him a colt, which is a donkey, which has never been ridden. His disciples did as he instructed and spread their cloaks on the donkey. The people who saw this spread their cloaks on the road, and some took branches off palm trees to welcome him. Others shouted, "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest heaven." Jesus, the King of Peace, royally entered Jerusalem. It is with special intention that Jesus chose a donkey. According to the custom of that age, the king riding on a donkey was to establish peace. The very meaning of the word Jerusalem is the city of peace. The cleansing of the temple. When Jesus reached Jerusalem, he entered the temple and was angered. He noticed that people were using the temple as a marketplace. Jesus overturned tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves. He then told the people, "It is written, 'My house shall be called a house of prayer,' but you are making it a den of robbers." The reason why this is so interesting is it's the first time that we see Jesus as someone who was angry, which is a very human emotion. We can see here Jesus as one who raised his voice against the injustices that reigned there in the Temple of Jerusalem. The observance of Pasch. The Jewish Pasch is the commemoration of God miraculously saving the people of Israel from the slavery of Egypt. The word Pasch means to pass by, and this feast was also known as the Feast of the Unleavened Bread. Jesus entrusted Peter and John to make necessary arrangements for the Paschal meal. When it was evening, Jesus sat for the meal along with his disciples. So the takeaway from this slide is to know that everyone came to Jerusalem during this festival of the year. And the purpose behind the festival was to observe Pasch. And Pasch is when the Israelites remembered how they were saved from the slavery of Egypt. Jesus washes the feet. During supper, Jesus got up and removed his outer robe and tied a towel around his waist. Then he took water in a basin and washed the feet of the disciples, kissed them, and wiped them with the towel that was tied around him. Jesus did this in advance of leaving the world and going to his Father. Through washing the feet of his disciples, Jesus gave the example of love and service. Jesus said to the disciples, "So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example, and you should also do as I have done to you." Eating the Passover meal. Later on, while all were eating, Jesus took bread, blessed it, broke it, and gave to his disciples, saying, "Take and eat. This is my body." Then he took the cup, gave thanks, and gave it to his disciples, and said, "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the new covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." After that, Jesus commanded, "Do this in remembrance of me." It is important to know that Jesus breaking the bread and pouring the wine was a sign of his sacrifice to come on Calvary. By doing this, he instituted the Holy Eucharist on this occasion so that men might share his body and blood at all times. The New Commandment. Jesus told his disciples at the end of the observance of the Pasch, "I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." It is this commandment of love that is the foundation of Christianity. Israel got freedom from slavery through the observance of Pasch in the Old Testament, but the whole of mankind was saved through this observance of the Pasch of Jesus in the New Testament. The Pasch of Jesus was the sign of the sacrifice of Calvary. Thus, Jesus established the Christian Pasch in the background of the Jewish Pasch.
Jesus with his apostles ate the meal of Pasch. He took body and was born, and he took the fall like a dog. Human reasons with great joy sing hallelujah. The Lord of the pathway says, indeed is glorious. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Life Witness. Jesus gave us on the feast of the Pasch his body and blood as food and drink. Let us receive the holy body and blood of Jesus devoutly. The verse to memorize this week is from 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 26. As often as you eat this bread and drink the cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes. End of lesson questions for this week include the following. What was the intention of Jesus to choose the colt as his vehicle? How did Jesus react against the injustice prevailing in the temple? And describe how Jesus observed the Pasch. Lastly, for this week's activity, just like the new commandment we received was love one another, this week we want you to do an act on the service of love. For example, talk to a sad friend, help a family member with housework, or pray for someone in need.